In one of the Damien Hirst books, there's this great 2-page spread in giant type. It says, "What the fuck is wrong with eye candy?" And it was in response to Hirst's, what are they called, spin paintings, where he has this sort of contraption, he puts paint on it and then spins it, and basically they make cool spinny paint effects. They're kind of dope. And he was responding to the criticism of them that they were just eye candy, that they had nothing to them. And his response to that was, you know, what the fuck is wrong with eye candy? Like, why can't I make something that just looks cool and is effortless? Hang out in the shade here for a second. And especially if you come from like an art school background, you know that eye candy is essentially a crime against humanity. Sorry, let's have a sip of this. And it reminds me of this other thing that I think is kind of important. And it's in the 1990s, probably 1993, I think, the actor Jason Lee, back when he was a professional skateboarder, he started a company called Stereo with Chris Pastras. And the point of Stereo was basically to do what felt good. Skateboarding at that time was like hyper technical. They were probably 21 and they were already old for a skateboarder, but a professional skateboarder in 1992, 93 or whatever. They were certainly like on their way out. So rather than sort of retire unceremoniously and sort of be kicked out of the industry, they just decided they were going to do their own company, and it was going to be about the stuff they were interested in. Essentially kind of early 90s coffee house culture, dressing like a old man and listening to jazz and drinking cappuccinos. And they made a really influential video at that time called A Visual Sound. And A Visual Sound is mostly black and white, shot on what is it called, 8mm or 16mm film, 8mm film, I can't remember. But it's this very kind of vibey thing. There's not a lot of hammers in it. It's just a crew of people who are skating really fast in schoolyards in LA and San Francisco. And it's this really influential video, and part of it probably has a lot to do with the art direction in terms of it being kind of jazzy, maybe a little bit retro-y and sort of art school. But there's another aspect to it, which is that the individual skaters are all legends that came out of that. Jason Lee was already a legend, but that certainly cemented it. I think that's probably the thing people care about the most as far as Jason Lee's contribution to skateboarding. Other people that were in that video, like Mike Daher, I'm trying to remember if Greg Hunt is in it, I can't recall, and Ethan Fowler was another big one. And they did whatever they felt like doing. So if they felt like skating fast and doing kickflips over benches, that's what they did. If Mike Daher felt like doing out-of-date tricks, like grabbing your board, which skateboarders will understand what I'm talking about, normal human beings will not, he did that. And that's part of what attracted them to Jason Lee and Chris Pastras. Like, that's what they were looking for. They were looking for people who looked comfortable and happy riding a skateboard and weren't necessarily worried about doing like the coolest trick at the time. Ethan Fowler, who had his breakout part in that video, I remember seeing a thing with him a long time later, and he was describing his sort of philosophy of tricks and what to film, and he basically said, if it doesn't feel good, it won't look good. And that at the end of the day, you know, you have to get good at something probably for it to feel good at all. But when I step on a skateboard, there's weird little things that they don't even qualify as tricks, and they feel great. And I could do it all day long. I think anyone who skates knows that. I'm sure there's equivalencies to any activity. But the basic gist of it is that past the skill level, if it feels clunky and awkward, there's a good chance it might look clunky and awkward. And that Ethan Fowler line's always stuck with me because I think it applies to everything, or at least for a certain type of creative, it applies to everything. And if I look back at my own work, I don't think there's a lot of projects. Like, I have a general philosophy that if I struggled making the thing, I'm probably not stoked on the outcome. I was probably relieved it was finished or happy it was finished, but not happy with the actual end product. that's a personal perspective. I know other people who everything's a struggle and that's great and it's probably awesome at the end, but there's a feeling while working that I'm after, and if I don't get that, I'm not happy with that output. And I think that idea, if it doesn't feel good, it won't look good, I think that's like, it's a skateboarding equivalent of Damien Hirst's spin paintings. That it's okay to do something that is just because the process of making it feels so good, or just because it looks so good, even if you have no deep meaning behind it. And that I just totally lost my train of thought. That you can do things just because they feel good or just because they look good, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that, if anything, no matter what the outcome is of the thing you've made, whether people like it, whether people buy it, whether people watch it, whether they give a shit at all, at the very least, at the end of the day, you'll know that the time spent doing it, you were operating in a zone where everything is like in alignment. It feels good, and it feeling good, it makes you happy, and it being a productive activity, it makes you happy. And like, you know, that's like the sort of three, I don't know, like corners of creation. You know, it's like mental, physical, and I don't know, emotional. And that if all of those things are kind of in alignment, well, who gives a shit if it's not the deepest thing in the world? Because like, you're gonna be dead soon, and eventually none of that shit will be in alignment. Might as well do it now and enjoy it. And you know, I question how much of all the forced deepness and forced intensity and forced sort of competition of, say, art, how many of those people are really making work that they're happy with, and instead making work that they think they're supposed to make to check off a bunch of boxes of what an artist is supposed to do, or maybe even worse, what they think their teachers want from them. So, you know, if it feels good, yeah, walk down the street making a video. Doesn't feel good, don't do it. Find an avenue that works. You know, if drawing in crayon is the thing that feels great, even if you think like, this is really goofy, it's really goofy that I want to draw in crayon, but it feels good and you're fascinated and you're engaged and you're learning, then run with it. Because like, at the end of the day, I say the end of the day all the time, but the stereo video is influential in large part because they just did what they felt like doing. And you know, and most of the compelling art, the stuff that lasts, the classics, it comes down to like, I'm interested in this thing, I'm going to do it how I want to do it, I'm going to do it in a way that feels good, I'm going to do it in a way that like I end up with a result I love. And I don't know how much like deep concepts really come through. It's not to say they never do, but it's to say a lot of people feel like they're kind of trapped by the idea of a deep concept. So what's the point? Per Damien Hirst and Ethan Fowler and Jason Lee, if it doesn't feel good, it probably won't look good, and it's okay if it looks good and there's no real idea behind it. All right, thanks a lot for watching.